Tell us, if we've got some, young high school catchers that are younger, what would you be looking for in terms of some physical tools that hey, this is what I need my guys to be able to do. I want them to have X, Y, and Z before they come in here.
Sure. I've talked to our catchers recently about this. Catch first. Catch first. And I don't mean present first and frame first. I mean catch first. I'll show our guys video of catchers who would catch Nolan Ryan or some of the old timers and how they would go at the ball very simply. They didn't have all the information. So if you can catch first, then that's a brick that you can build the next skills on, the ability to present better. Block second, and then we present third, and then we'll throw it fourth. Now, it's important, but that's the order we go down because catchers catch. And if they can get the simplicity of getting it, then we can get a guy like you who can teach them some of the intricacies. And I think that's where they have to start. The second thing is a young catcher's got to be willing to do the hard physical labor. If I see a guy who loves to get dirty and let it bounce off his wrists while he's learning to block, that guy's got a chance to do it. And that's second. Last, will they run the pitching staff eventually? And that's a lot of work, a lot of study. Not as a freshman, very few would, but will they eventually guide the pitching staff? I'd like to see that as the third check.
So if you're out looking at catchers, kind of on that third check, of running the pitching staff, what are you looking for? You're at a game, an event, whatever it may be. What are you looking for from this guy that makes you go, I think that guy has a chance to run my staff?
It's a good question. It's not a verbal thing because not everybody's verbal. It's presence. It's presence. It's the ability to respond. Let's say a ball goes to the backstop. How's he going to respond? Will he get up, do his job, pick it up, and go eyes up to figure out what he needs to do for his team? Or does it become slam the glove, mope to tell everybody he didn't do a good job, pick up the ball, and by that time a guy's gone 180 feet? Just that presence to handle the bad stuff, but then the presence to add to the good stuff that the pitcher's doing. It makes all the difference in the world. And really there's no other way to say it than some guys have it because they work at it, and some guys don't have it because they don't work at it in the bullpens or on flat ground here with their guys.
And that presence and looking a certain way goes such a long way. I mean, we talk to our guys, we have our guys work on how they throw the ball back to the pitcher, because it's like, hey, you may not block a ball that game that the coach shows up. Nobody might steal that game, right? You may get the easiest day in the world in terms of receiving, but if you look like you got some fluidity, you've got some movement, can I make communication with that pitcher every pitch? Because realistically, that's possible. Some verbal, right? Maybe we're using our hands some point. Totally, and we can totally feel the control of that game that guy has. And like you said, it doesn't always have to be verbal. And so again, body language, super important. That's been such a topic as we've done these things, is how they carry themselves. And I've been so pumped to hear literally the idea of we got to catch the ball, right? Because the culture of the game has taught us, what's your pop time? What's it coming out of your hand at? What velocity? What's your exit velocity? And we get people on the Instagram page writing like, hey, my pop time's, and I'm always like, I don't care.
I'll look at the superficial stuff at those showcases because that's all I'm going to see. To really know how he operates and what he does away from showcases, I'm calling a guy like you. I'm calling somebody that knows him. How does he work when no one's watching, and what's he working on day to day? How does he communicate? What questions does he ask you? What's the character like? For a catcher, there may be no more important position on the field to have a guy with a good mind. I've coached catchers with almost no tools. The guy I coached at USF, John Norfolk, and I'm not ashamed to say it, I call him the best no-tool catcher I've ever coached. He could catch. I don't take that away, but it's because he did so many other things that drove the pitching staff, that served the pitching staff. So my biggest piece of information is going to come from somebody that knows him well. It's not going to come from 2 hours I get to watch him block and catch, although you'll get a general sense about effort, but the real stuff has to come from people you trust.
So kind of piggybacking off of your former catcher there, talk a little bit about leadership and the culture that catcher can create with leadership, and I think it's something that you've probably seen develop over time. You've seen natural born leaders, you've seen it verbal, you've seen it by example, but how are you working to make sure that guy's basically empowers himself, and then you also empower him to have some leadership.
Yeah, I think it's, let's say there's 130 pitches in a college baseball game. Put the number at whatever you want. If that catcher is working to do his job on 130 pitches, we're on to something. If he takes 5 pitches off and he's kicking himself for 5, he's got a ways to go. We've given away 10 pitches. And I think for a young catcher to keep it simple, he can go into a 7-inning game in high school and say, if there's going to be 110 pitches today, am I doing my job on 110 pitches? The way I receive, the way I get it back, and then it's a checklist. Every pitch is a check mark. I did it. And he gets done with the day, and then he can ask somebody that watched him that knows, hey, how was I today? But his job is just to go back and do his job 110 times. After that, it's simple for those guys.